Okay, today's tool video is going to be on watercolors, which is going to be our next medium that we look at. And these are my London series that I just finished, and all of these were done with watercolors. So you can see the kind of vibe you get. Quite whimsical. You can go quite thick, you can go quite thin, you can go quite watery. So we're going to learn the techniques for that. Two main techniques. So I want to show you the tools that we need. Now, before we even get into anything else, I just want to show you the brush. All those were painted with this one brush. Okay. This one is from a local Chinese store. It's an Arctic 16. And the reason I love this is because you've got a nice, very fine point at the end. See that? And so if you put light pressure, you get to enjoy that very, very, very fine point. And if you want to put extra pressure, you get to enjoy a nice, big, fat brush stroke. Okay. This is one brush you will want to buy. It's not expensive. You can get a pack of 3 different sizes like this for about $5 something. It's really great value. And it's something you will use throughout your entire watercolor series. Any watercolor work you do, you could literally get away with this one brush and probably not have to worry about any other brush. If you do ever want to get really, really fine detailed, however, this is a little hack. This is a brush from also a Chinese store, from the nail section. So this is for doing really fine nail art. If you lick your fingers and do that, you get a really nice fine tip on that, and it's much finer than a lot of the brushes that you can get in an art store, or if you can't get to an art store to get a really fine brush, this is something to go look for. These are €1 or €2 a brush, so not too bad. But again, this brush did not get used on any of these. It was just this one. So that's the brushes. Okay, next is the paints. Now there's 2 really different types of paints you can buy. You can buy the paints that are solid blocks like this. This is one from Little, and it's perfectly acceptable for beginner watercolor work. Okay, a nice range of colors, and well, the pigment's pretty decent on it. These are not as good as the ones that I have at the studio, which I bought in Canada, which have more pigmentation than these. These are a little bit creamier, which is not a bad thing. It just depends on kind of how you want to work with the paints. These are really inexpensive, and if budget is a big concern, then this is what you should get. It's only about €2 or €3 for this, and it'll last you for years, basically. You can get a higher end version of something like this on Amazon, where you have little small blocks of very high pigmented paint. And that's worth looking at if you think you're going to really like this medium and want to spend a bit of time with this medium. Okay. Now, the other way to buy paints is in tubes like this. And the tubes then squeeze out into a palette like this, and I put this here. Now, I bought this one at a local Chinese store. It's not expensive. It's $6.25 for a box, and I thought they would be quite decent because I like the Arctic's brand in acrylic paint. These are not bad, and if it's all you can get your hands on, then it's worth buying a set. It's not what I will choose to paint with, however, and I'll tell you why. So there's the yellow one that I opened. I also opened a red one, and I opened an orange one, and I opened a brown one. And these are all quite creamy. And the problem with that is it goes on a little bit thicker on the page than maybe you would like. What you really want is a higher pigmented paint. Now these things will not go off, okay? This is a palette I've had since I was a kid. The paints just don't die. Like this, it's on my hand there. They just don't die. They'll be here forever. It's been, what, 47 now? These are 35 years old. They just don't die. And the reason I want to tell you that is so that you know that it is really worth the money. If you think you're going to enjoy watercolor on and off over the years, it's worth spending the money to get really good quality watercolors. And this is the brand you should go online and look for. It's Winsor & Newton, okay? I don't know if there's a brand that's any better than these guys. They know exactly what they're doing. And most of my paints are Winsor & Newton paints, which actually is going to bring us on to palettes in a second. But I also wanted to show you this. This is a modern development with paints, which is these metallic ones. And they're brilliant. They can do so much to a painting. And I really do recommend, I bought these ones in Canada. You can start to find these ones more around. I haven't found any local sources, but you can get them online. If anybody spots any local sources, you can let the group know. But you can have a lot of fun with these, and I highly recommend picking some up to have them in your stash. Okay, so that moves us on to palettes. Now, palettes, this is, again, I've had this since I was a kid. This is, look how slimline this is. You can pick it up in any Chinese store here. They cost hardly anything, 2 or 3 euros. And I mean, I've had this one, as I said, since I was a kid. Oh, I don't learn my lesson. There's my paint again. And it's portable. It can go in your bag, in your purse. You can travel around with this, and it's perfectly fine. You pop your paints in here, and you do your mixing in here, okay? It's great. You want a little bit more mixing space. You've got mixing space here. You've got mixing space here. You can hold it like this, pop your thumb in there, right? So you can even stand and be outside sort of doing stuff. It's a very, very versatile palette. I really like it a lot, this one. But I don't use it. And I don't use it because I use this palette. This has also been my palette since I was a kid. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So these are all the metallics that I've just popped in there. It has a lid, and that's important because it keeps the dust off the paints. And then all my paints are in here. This is quite big. Okay, so these are my 2 hands, all right? And this is quite big. And you basically just pop your paints, okay, in these holes. Normally, when I was much younger, I literally had a little squeeze out of one tube, right? Because a little squeeze out of one tube will last forever. But I've had these paints forever, so you see this? All the paint dried in my tubes. And I had this baggie full of dried up paint. So I just literally cut open the tubes. Okay, you see that? I cut open the tubes and pop the paint out. It's 35, 40 years old, some of this, and it's absolutely perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. It does not go off. So it's worth spending the money to buy high quality paint because you will be much happier with it in the long term. You don't need a whole huge range of colors, but I'll tell you some that are really essential to have that I think is great. Is the ultramarine, sap green, an ochre, a crimson, a burnt umber, a raw sienna, yeah, probably like a cobalt blue, and my favorite of all of them, this is Prussian blue. That's really nice, but I use indigo so much. I love this for some reason. The indigo is See all of this stuff in here? Instead of using black, I'll tend to use indigo. So this kind of stuff, because it's got a bit of a blue indigo here. This has got black. There's not really much indigo on that one. This is a lot of indigo. You can see it in here. I just love it. All of this here is indigo, right? So it just depends on what you're interested in. And cerulean blue down here as well is another really useful color. I mean, generally when you buy a set, you'll end up getting a full range. Cadmium yellow, you know, you can kind of take a look and see. You don't have to get all of them, but I've gone through the ones that are generally really useful, because the rest can get mixed up. This is a Payne's gray, which actually I also love as well. It's like almost a black obviously. This is a hooker green, which is like a kind of like a hunter green, you know, like a deep one. Viridian is a very unique kind of green, which gets used from time to time, but a lot of people don't like it, but it's really good for making turquoises. But anyway, so that's palettes. So you can decide sort of what kind of palette you want. You can also get those sort of circular ones. I've also got some of those, but I don't like them. They don't really have a tremendous amount of space. If it's all you've got, then great, but these are better. Okay, and finally, paper. The most complicated of the choices. Well, not complicated, but the one where you can go wrong really easily, actually. Okay. This one is available in a lot of the local Chinese stores. It's really inexpensive. It's about €3 something for a pack of 24 pages. The problem is it's only 180 grams per square meter. So what that means is if we make a square meter of this and weigh it, the weight is going to be 180 grams, right? Now, I don't know if you can see that, but it is very dry, very textured, very rough, but you touch it and instantly you just hate the feel of it. It is so dry. It's like a homemade paper where you took a bunch of paper scraps and whizzed it all up in a blender and then laid it on a mesh and let it dry. It's got that kind of texture to it. And this is it here. It just doesn't take the colors very well. It doesn't hold the water very well. The paper gets very ripply. You can see here, paper gets very ripply. I made the mistake of buying 3 packs of this because I thought, oh, okay, that's a pretty good price. And as I say, I like the brand a lot for acrylic paints. But this is really, in my opinion, just not worth buying. So I now use it just as sort of tester paper, or, you know, when the kids want watercolor paper, I'll give them that if they're just going to do some sort of random project or something. So this one I would not recommend getting. If you've already got it, fine. Use it as like tester stuff, but just know you're not going to do something that you're going to want to frame on it. This was bought in the UK. This is a bit thicker. This is 230 grams and it's acid free, which means that your artwork is not going to yellow over time. It's the same. When you touch it, it's just so dry. It's so dry. It just is really the most unpleasant thing to feel. And when you're testing out paper, and if you feel that, it's sort of like really cheap toilet paper, the feeling of really cheap toilet paper, and you're like, ah. Again, you know, like, avoid if you can. We're starting now. This one was bought on Amazon. This one's 260 grams. And I bought a 260 gram one. I don't like this light, actually, when I bring these things up. I don't know if you can see the texture. It's hard to see. The texture's fine, but I want you to see the color. If you're not careful, you can end up accidentally buying yellow watercolor paper. Okay? Now, the problem with that, do you see the difference? The problem with that is you notice it in the end product. And this wasn't really evident when we bought it. It didn't say it was cream colored that I can remember, but now I've ended up with a 50 pack of these things. So I'll pick and choose what I use these for, maybe cards. Now the nice thing about a 260 gram one, you see it's still got flexibility, but it will go in my printer. So I can do an outline in my sketchbook. I can then go to my printer and I can make a copy of that onto the watercolor paper, which is brilliant because then it saves me using carbon paper. And then I can just do my watercolor from that, which is really quite nice. So these are things to kind of pay attention to when you're purchasing online. This one is 300 grams, which means it's a little bit heavier, okay? And you can see it's still flexible, but you touch it, and yes, of course it's dry because it's paper, but it just has substance to it. It doesn't feel flimsy. It doesn't feel unpleasant to the touch in any way. This was bought, I think, in Canada. Again, it says acid free here, and cold pressed, which is really good for taking the extra water without getting ripply. All right. This one I bought in Portimao at a shop called Action, thanks to Frederic. It is not amazing, but for the price, it's about €2, and you get 24 sheets of 300 gram paper. That is almost 21 by 30, which will go into an IKEA frame. And I did all of these on that paper. It works perfectly well, right? It works absolutely perfectly well. And I would highly recommend that this is something that you stock up on. So if you can get yourself to Portimao, to Action, this would be really, really, really worth having. Okay, this one. All right, it's the best value watercolor paper I have been able to find in this country or on Amazon. I kid you not. All right. Now, this is the gold standard in watercolor paper. This is by a company called Arches. All right, this is a watercolor block. I'll show you what that means. It's cold pressed, right? Which means that it is, again, really good for absorbing the water. I've got 20 sheets of it. This would have cost a fortune. I bought this, or my mother actually bought this years ago when I was a kid. And again, it is 300 grams, okay? There you go. This company was founded in 1492. These guys are the best. If you find Arches, you know you're getting quality, and you'll know it as well because you'll be paying for it. Now, this is a block. Now, what that means is that the whole edge of it is plastic coated, okay? Now, the beauty of that is you can do your whole artwork here. Everything stays stuck down, all right? You don't need to tape anything down, and it holds it flat. So for those of you who saw the cat, I did the watercolor cat for Louise that I did it on this paper, okay? Perfectly flat. You will have noticed it was perfectly flat. It did not buckle with the water that went on the page. It was beautiful. And then at the end, when you're all finished, in order to actually get this off the block, you use an X-Acto knife, and they leave a little gap here in the plastic, and you put your X-Acto knife in where the gap is, and you just start slicing around the block like this, okay? This is the gold standard, and if you are thinking, you know what, I'd like to take watercolors seriously because I really enjoy the medium, and you might not know that yet, but if down the line you start to feel that way, then this is what you should invest in. Maybe save it for those special pieces because this, I mean, the price is not on it at the minute, but you know, if you start looking around, you'll see, you know, you get what you pay for, basically. So I hope that that is a really helpful video on what tools you need for watercolor and the sort of quality ranges that you can get. These ones, you can see a bit of buckling with them. These were the 300 grams, same 300 grams as this, but this is cold pressed. And you can see this is not cold pressed, right? But these were this one. A bit of buckling, but it won't detract when it's framed. It won't detract from the experience, okay, of the artwork at all. Whereas you take a look at this one, our 180 gram. Can you see that? Look at that. Diabolical. They shouldn't even call it watercolor paper. It is just so bad. See that? It's just so bad. And that one, again, was this guy. Unfortunately, one of my most disappointing purchases in the last year and a half. Yeah. Unfortunate. But it's still useful for doing things like little decorative things that you might cut out and then stick on cards, right? So you can still use this for something. You're just not going to use it for an artwork that you're going to frame. Okay? Ta-da! Watercolor tools. Looking forward to starting watercolors with you guys. Okay, ciao.